All right, welcome back to Resilient Voices and Beyond, Season 3, Episode 17. Man, it's been a long time coming. I truly appreciate every single one of you guys out there supporting. I'm looking at my stats on multiple different streams, from like Spotify to like Facebook, and it is a new experience of data for me. I'm gonna just say that. So I don't have an exact number of how many people are supporting or how many this, that, or the third. I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you. I truly appreciate it. I would not be able to do this without you guys. You guys have supported me in multiple different ways. I appreciate your comments, y'all reaching out, not only to me, but also to the guests I've had on here before, because I'm pretty sure it has been impactful in their lives as well. With that being said, if you have made it to season 3, and you just like, who, I don't even know how I hopped on this podcast. Who is this person talking? My name is Michael D. Davis Thomas, aka MDDT Speaks. It is my initials. I spent approximately 11 years in the Michigan child welfare system, starting out on the juvenile justice side, aging out of the foster care side. I started advocating within the foster care system and have been working professionally since I've aged out. I've worked in many various different positions, from being frontline to doing micro to macro work, national, local, you name it. And that is why I'm here today, to bring to you the voices of resiliency and the society as we know it, in hopes that it may help and impact or change some lives out there. With that being said, y'all not here for me, even though I could talk all day. Y'all are here for my guest. So without further ado, I'm gonna have my guest introduce herself.
Oh, Michael, I'm so excited to be here today. Oh, I met Michael, oh gosh, probably 5 or 6 years ago. And he was like doing some panel work, and I got to hear his story, and I've been following him ever since and listening to his podcast and following you on LinkedIn and seeing all the different speaking engagements you've been doing and all that stuff. And it's super, super awesome to hear your story. So thanks for asking me to come on today. My name is Kenisha Coon. I reside in Michigan, so we're like neighbors.
Yep.
Yeah, so I have lived experience in resiliency when it comes to the child welfare system, whereas in I grew up in an abused and neglected household, but they weren't caught. So we should have been removed. We weren't removed. I say that it's more of like the prevention side of things. There was probably a couple of services that I don't really remember, but there was a lot going on that folks just didn't see. Um, now that I'm older, I have learned through doing work in this system. I am biracial. My mom is white and my dad was black, but I grew up in an all-white home. Um, I've learned that sometimes certain folks, I'll say, for this particular instance, the white family that I was with, my biological family, sort of flew under the radar, and they didn't get a lot of people checking up on them or anything like that. So there was a lot that happened, a lot of serious emotional and physical abuse. And because of that, I got married when I was 19 and moved across the country. Yeah.
Well,
And yeah. I will say that my husband and I are still married. So we've been married for 15 years, but yeah. So when I started going to school and I was wondering, what do I want to do? I knew that I wanted to do psychology and study psychology. And then when we moved back to Michigan, I got this chance to get into adoption work, which was super, super awesome. So I've been doing child welfare work for a little over 13 years now. Um, from I'd say anything from prevention all the way to post-adoption and everything in between I've done. Licensing, I was a trainer. I have done foster care. I've done it all. And then I switched to macro work. So training, and really focusing in, I got to do some policy and legislation work, which is really awesome. But my focus along the whole corridor has been diversity, equity, inclusion work alongside that. So like, how can we make sure that we are doing all of this work, but also working towards lowering the disproportionality of our BIPOC kids that are in the system? Because we know that the numbers of our BIPOC kiddos are very disproportionate to our white kids. So a lot of my focus over the last couple of years has really been that. And I've gotten, some really amazing opportunities to do national work as well. I'm a graduate of the Minority Professional Leadership Development Program alongside Adopt US Kids in the Children's Bureau. And with that, it really opened doors. So I've done work with National Adoption Association and the Children's Bureau. And I currently get to do some awesome work with Child Welfare Information Gateway. So it's super, super awesome. But along with my child welfare work, I have a couple side hustles because, out here we have to side hustle in this at this time, right? So I have a consulting business, Kenisha Coon Consulting, where I do DEI consulting with small businesses and folks and training. And then some child welfare work with that as well. So I do some consulting with child welfare agencies and things of that sort, other nonprofits. And then I have a calligraphy business because I like to do something fun too. So I write for weddings and I created an anti-racism calligraphy book that I self-published, which is really cool. So yeah, and then I recently wrote a book about my journey through this resilience of being biracial in a white home and growing up in a very, very white town and not having any exposure to my culture. So that's coming out next year. I'm super excited about that. But yeah, it's just been this journey of overcoming and just really seeing what we can do to push towards this positive, right?
Well, you gave me a lot there.
I did, sorry. And I left out some.
No, it's okay. It's okay because if you don't mind, I'm gonna ask some questions and break it down a little bit. You went over your childhood,
Yeah.
get there. If you don't mind, could you touch a little bit on what that experience kind of looked like? Because you mentioned not really, I don't know what if there was a removal, but
No
being
removal.
because of in the prevention side of things, being still in that home. And if you can share with us with that, because I've advocated a lot throughout my journey. And one of the things I have advocated it about is we talk about the individuals who have been removed and the effects of the system they were removed to and had to age out of or placed in foster homes and all these different things. But we don't talk about the individuals that don't just yet make it to the system, but still go through things. And those individuals typically, if we go by the stats, end up in the prison pipeline sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
or unfortunately, death.
Yeah.
Uh, So could you share a little bit more about that experience and I guess any coping strategies
Yeah,
of
absolutely. Um, some of my earliest memories, and I write about this in my book too, like some of my earliest memories of the abuse was, oh gosh, like 3 or 4. Like I don't really remember it
Mhm.
before that, although I know that there was some there. But um my mother was a single mother at this time. Um, and it was me and my sister. And I think, like, I know it was very generational because we would also get it from my grandmother and other family members that would babysit us. Like, everyone was allowed to do whatever I almost swore I don't want to swear in your podcast. Do whatever the heck they wanted. And get away with it, sorta. So, I don't know if, when you think about the generational factor of, well, I was raised to hit, so I'm gonna hit type of person, but there's a difference between spanking a child, right? And full on wanting to borderline really, really hurt them on purpose. And that's where it sort of was in my home. Um, Memories of being kicked down the stairs, memories of like we'd be really hungry and my sister and I would like no one would fill out the papers even though we like qualified for free lunch, right? But so you still go to school hungry. So we'd like steal change from the change jar and it was found out and so like our parent would heat up change on the stove and make us hold it like in our hand, like really bad things like that. Of course, like emotional and verbal as well. But when we would go to school and have a bruise or whatever, like of course it would be reported. I do remember like a few visits here or there, but like nothing beyond that. Like so I don't know, like, really, because I was so young, if there was particular services that were put in place, maybe a little extra, but there was never like parenting classes. No one was ever removed. Um, and there was a lot of alcohol use in the home, gang activity, um, in certain homes we lived in, lots of moving around, and maybe that was a factor too, because if you move around, they can't find you. So, lots of that going into it. But when I put a lot of that together now, and how I cope, well, I actually became estranged from my um maternal side of the family. Like I still talk to my sister, but I really cut everyone out when my son was born, my oldest son. Because I said, I can't trust anyone with my kid. Like I don't want to, I don't trust leaving my child with anyone. I don't, and then people like saying that they never did certain things. So lots of, I never hit you. I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah,
Like that type of stuff.
collective memory?
Yeah, like, I've never abused you in my life. I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? No, 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 no. So, for me and my mental health, I just had to cut everyone off. So it's been like 11 years. And some things have happened in that time. It's been really interesting. Lots of therapy. Like my therapist, I've been seeing her for almost 6 years. She knows every little thing, teeny thing about me. And I still struggle with that, being estranged, but like I always let it get to be still. Like it's interesting. So coping skills, I would say, would be sharing my story. And when I wrote my book, that was huge. Like I just let it all out. It was like that was a huge therapeutic release for me. But therapy, I will say my mother is very sick now. And I actually saw her for the first time in 11 years this past weekend. And I just said hi and left it at that and sort of left the situation. Am I trying to make a relationship? She wants one, but I'm not ready. I don't want that. And there will never be a relationship with my kids. But it's that trust factor is gone. So limited. I know folks are like, it's your parent. You always have to, like have that relationship. You only have one mom, blah, blah, blah. But no, not for me.
Yeah, I respect that so much. It's a couple of things that you mentioned and shared that touched me. Go back to the selective memory because nowadays going around my family, like, oh, you such a bad kid. Was I?
Or was it situationally like
Yeah,
pushed, right?
yeah. And it's crazy to me because you can definitively remember things about me, but not things that you did to me. And different things like that. And yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. But also I realize a lot of people feel guilty. And that's their way of coping with their guilt. I'm a firm believer. I'm not going to take on what you have of your own. That's for you to heal from, for you to deal with, and take it up to God. But another thing you mentioned about with your mom, you know, at 11, my mom had 5 consecutive strokes. Throughout my time in the system, my mom was in and out of like rehabilitation. There was a point where she came back home. I was at home and took care of her. And I share this story all the time. I took care of my mom at like 14. This point, my sister would go to work. I would be coming home from school, and I would make sure my mom was bathed, give her medicine, whatever she. This point in time, my mom was my abuser. Um, at that time, so many different thoughts, and I shared before, like being at the state I was. Yes, there were thoughts of doing harm, Um, I don't know any other person who wouldn't.
Right.
But we can play like no, whichever way helps you. Um, but that was one of my experiences. But also, um, I intentionally, because my mom, I would get calls while I was in residential facilities, in and out of juveniles, all these different things. Your mom's in the hospital. Your mom's on the ventilator. Your mom's out the hospital. Your mom.
Oh, I've been
So,
there. So you
so
have those conflicting thoughts, like, am I supposed to
yeah.
go? Am I not supposed to go? Like, what do I do? And I said, no, not for me.
So I maintain court order visitation.
Okay.
I did that for one reason because I was like, I wanted to continue to have a connection to my family, but I knew being at home itself was not safe. Of course, indeed, my mom was medically unable to like take care of me, so there was no safety risk for me to do visitation or what have you. But my mom passed away 4 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay. I was dealing with that all yesterday. My mom passed away 4 years ago yesterday. So
Yeah.
it's still kind of fresh to the sense that I grieve and I mourn
Yes.
not being able to have a mother.
Yep.
Um,
I
because
relate with that. Mm-hmm.
the mother I knew
Mm-hmm.
doesn't fit in the boxes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, of what a mother should be.
exactly.
And I grew up in residentials. All I knew was what TV or what society said moms and dads do. So
Mm-hmm.
that held a huge value. I remember talking with my siblings and they were like, this, that, and the third. And I was like, well, for me, I don't remember my mom um, being a mom to me. I'm the youngest. They have some bits and pieces of good memory,
Yeah.
which is leaves our relationship a little bit distant. But also they haven't processed things that they have been through. So I um, connected with you when you mentioned what you experienced with your mom and what have you, because it was a journey for me. I like to think me and my mom built somewhat of a cordial relationship. I was able to forgive my mom and kind of go into a space of peace with that. Um,
Same.
but
Only recently, like a year ago.
it,
Like very recent for me.
it's not an easy process.
No, it took a
It's
lot of
not an
years.
easy process.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get to really do deep work until after my mom's passing when I really sat with thoughts because I realized, and I mentioned this before, my mom, my dad, even with my siblings and some of my other family members that were a part of the abuse that I endured,
Mm-hmm.
there's no tangible or real conversation of sitting across the table, having a red table talk, whatever you want to call it, that
Mm-hmm.
whatever answer they give me will be acceptable. So, and my research into intergenerational trauma, childhood trauma, learned helplessness, things that were passed on within the Black community through slavery and understanding my mom and my dad's pathology towards their life. I was able to see them as human beings and not excuse what they have done, um, but be able to see like, okay, you were a product of something and you didn't get the help or the resource that you needed. That doesn't mean that you were justified because as you became into your adulthood, you were responsible. You were responsible to not pass that on.
Yeah.
There was a choice that came upon your life where
It-
unfortunately you chose the wrong way.
yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting that you say that like with some conversation with your siblings and stuff and if you can like what that looks like for you because my sister actually came to visit this past weekend and we were like having conversation and things like that and we both have like it's in some people have different memories, right? Like she's repressed some things or maybe I remember this or she remembers this and we were like comparing a little bit and there was things like we didn't even know about like what had happened to each other that we had found out like over the weekend and we're like I never even knew that. Why'd you never tell me that before? And then we're like, I've never told anyone. I don't know. Like, why didn't you tell me that before? Like that type of stuff that was going on. Now, another caveat to my story is um my mother was married to my father when I was born, but then they got divorced. And my dad um was addicted to drugs and he ended up getting very sick. But then after he got sick, he got clean. But I was always told I never met him. And he was my dad was Black. So that was the Black side of my culture that I never had access to, right? So I was told that he moved back to where his family is from, is like Texas or whatever. And I was told I never met him, never had access to him. Um, and he ended up passing away when I was 13. So I never got a chance to meet him. And then at that point in time, I was always told that like his whole family had passed away too. So that his mother had passed, that my aunt, his sister had passed. Actually, I was told that his sister, my aunt, got hit by a train, and that my grandma died. Yeah, that very, very, very interesting stories I was told. So I was just like, never had access to any of that side of my family. Well, I did family finding for youth and teens for years, and I had access to all of these like tools, but I was like, I'm not using that. Like, it's okay, I can do it for other people. I'm not going to do it for myself. I'm not ready. Like, so it wasn't until, oh my gosh, 2 years ago, I was like, okay, I think I'm ready. So let me try to piece together my family tree a little bit. I do have my birth certificate. It has his name on it. I did some research. It has a social security number on it. You can find a lot on the internet these days, right? So I did some searching and I found what was perceived to be my grandmother. And I wrote her a letter and I said, I think I'm your granddaughter. This is my dad. This is my mom, like blah, blah, blah. And she called me. And my grandma was alive. Like, yeah. So that was in, it's 2023, 2021, maybe? No, 2022, last April. And we started talking and I was like, is this real? But then like it was real. Like it was real. So my husband and I flew down in August of 2022 and met my grandmother for the first time. Met my aunt who did not get hit by a train for the first time. And now all of a sudden I had these people who looked like me. And they like gave me all my dad's belongings that they had, like his wallet and his ID and like all kinds of what little stuff he had, some pictures. And then so I started to communicate with them. And then people started reaching out to me. All these cousins were adding me on Facebook, all these like people. And I sort of got overwhelmed a little bit because you go from not knowing anyone to all these people reaching out to you, right? So here we fast forward to this past summer, and I got to experience going to my first family reunion. And let me tell you, that was wild. Because for one, I've never felt like so accepted and so like at peace of being involved in a family where everyone just like got along for the most part. I mean, there was a family reunion. There was a couple little tiffles, right? But like this huge thing where this was their 45th family reunion or 42nd or whatever, 40 something. They've been doing this for 40 years. I also got a chance to go visit my grandma and take my kids to our homestead because we're from like deep South Louisiana, like in experiencing all that and learning about my history and my culture, and my grandma talking about how her and her family freaking picked cotton in the cotton fields and all of that stuff that I was just like, wow, this is wild. So over the last year and a half, 2 years, it's been wild meeting 100 people of my family, really learning about my heritage and my Black culture and like really where I come from. It's been really special and really awesome. And I also resent that I was kept away from all that too for however many years, 35 years. Like that I was kept away from that and told that I couldn't have any access to that part of my family because they said if they would have known, they would have helped. So what would have been different? You can think about that a little bit, like, right? What would have been different? I don't really know.
That's deep. It's interesting, your connection and connecting through a family reunion.
Mm-hmm.
Like a little kind of like fun fact slash thing that I learned recently that family reunions derive from slaves trying to find their families, after they were set free.
Really?
And
I did not know
so,
that.
um,
Wow.
and I don't have all the ins and outs, but I, just scrolling at night one night, I came
Yeah.
this video of somebody like, did you know about this? And I was like, oh no, look. So for like those families out there that got like, have been doing families for 50, 45, 60
Yes.
years,
Every single year, the same weekend.
that's where it derives from, individuals that have been sold to different plantations, kids,
Wow.
fathers, different things like that, wanting to come back and connect with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Some families connected, some families did not. So it's always interesting to hear that individuals continue that tradition, especially someone who, experienced what you have. Um, to touch on your earlier point, so I'm the youngest.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of what I experienced, a little few similarities. My mom was married to my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my dad and mom divorced. My dad up and got up one night and left. Well, it wasn't night. Came back from school, all his stuff was gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had a whole nother family out there.
Wow.
Um, but with my siblings, there's been times in my adulthood where we've lived with one another, connected with one another. Like through COVID, there's a stage where I was being homeless after my mom passed,
Mm-hmm.
in a place trying to find somewhere to stay. And conveniently enough, my brother offered like, "Hey, you can come stay with us." And I was like, first of all, we don't even talk.
Yeah.
I can't even express like me and my brothers. We call my sister to see what's happening with the other. Like my sister has been that line, and stuff like that. So like when he offered that, it was like, oh, okay. The other time there was moments of laughter,
Mm-hmm.
happiness. But what I say to that is there was a lot of surface level connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I like, have you ever I because I'm stuttering. I relate this to, remember in preschool. You meet that person that you like, oh, that's my best friend because y'all laugh,
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
share
Yep.
your, something like that's kind of how I guess that experience. Like it wasn't nothing deeper. Like there was a huge gap of what we knew of each other. My brothers escaped to their fathers. My sister went,
Mm.
and then went off to college. I was left in the home with my mother, continuing throughout the abuse for a few years until I was put into the system.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they all have unique and different perspectives. But it was a reason why my brothers left. I remember all from my young age what I seen happen to them, but they don't talk about it. You know, I don't know what their process of dealing would be or what have you, but I found my siblings to connect with outside people more than they connect with family. And
Mm.
that's been my journey. So it's still an ongoing journey with my siblings.
Yeah. I
Um,
feel like I can relate with that a little where I connect with outside people more than family too, but only because like not my maternal family, of course, but it's been interesting building a relationship. I was sort of with my paternal side, it's been really hard because I had that wall up for so long. Like my grandma was like, "Oh my God, we've been looking for you. We've been trying to have contact with you. Um, I love," and she said, like, "I love you." Like, and I was like, I couldn't say it back because I was like, I don't know you. Like that
that's
first
really,
time. Mm-hmm.
that's I
I was like,
like
I
I
don't know
think
you. I can't say that. Right.
I
Mm-hmm.
think that's like really fresh. Like, how do you get back to that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
actual words like that. Can I ask? Because I'm interested.
Yeah.
Um, do you and your sister say you love each other?
Yeah, we do. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. But we talk all the time. My sister and I, we're half sisters. We have different dads, but we grew up with the same mom in the same home.
Mhm.
Um, so we do, and we always have a connection, but also she lives on the other side of the country. So we don't see each other all the time, but we do say I love you. And we do have a good relationship, but like she's the only one. And then, but you know what? I will say though, I've reconnected with a couple of maternal people, but like my aunt, like I have a really good relationship with her, but also she didn't talk, like we weren't allowed to talk to her growing up. Like we weren't allowed to, because uh, she didn't act like the rest of my family. I don't know. But we weren't allowed to have conversations with her. We weren't allowed to have contact with her. And I never knew why. But when I started talking to her again, I figured out why. I was like, okay, because you have your head on your shoulders and you're not like doing the most like everyone else out here. So I have a really good relationship with my aunt. And she is like a mother figure to me. But so I'd say my aunt, my sister, and then definitely a lot of folks on my paternal side. It's been really interesting. But I do have a good relationship. Like my husband's family, like they know everything, and you know we've been together forever, so like I can talk to them about those things too. But
Yeah,
mhm,
thank you for sharing that. I asked a question.
mhm,
Um, this is, for the audience out there,
mhm,
a learn moment about me. There was a moment I had to reconnect with the word love.
mm,
I had to like because I remember
mm,
I remember the distinct moment when I disconnected from this world in a sense. Um, and it was when my mom used to say it a lot, but it was one particular night, my mom was angry, upset, what have you. And she said, I wish you were aborted. Um, and proceeded to say, like, I should have aborted you, this, that, and the third. Um,
mm,
not only my mom said that, but my siblings would say that too.
mm,
Um, so a big sever in that relationship was I disconnected from whatever bond that you're naturally born with. It
mhm,
was cut by the
mhm,
words that were thrown at me.
mhm,
And I couldn't really understand and recollect it as a kid. But as an adult, I'm like, you kept saying things like that. I could take the hits, take the black eyes. I could take, being thrown out, all that. Like that, unfortunately, was a part of the reality of being in a black home,
mhm,
um, but the words and the moments of because I didn't get a math problem, I didn't know how to add. You got frustrated, you slapped me, and then you cussed me. You know, like
mhm,
specific, like I have vivid memories of the experiences of myself and the experiences of my siblings in that environment, and
mhm,
the words, and it was the words that disconnected me from my family. And I had to learn how to connect back to the feeling and the word of love and family. And it took years. It took
yeah,
years. Um, and I'm and I thank God that I didn't allow myself in the process of finding connectivity to love and what family means to be put out into worldly things.
yeah,
Because I with the stats, I definitely could have. I could have been in somebody's gang, could have had kids to someone I wasn't connected to, all these different stats and statistics that surround around Black males, that could
mhm,
because I mentally was not there.
yeah,
And so I share that because, like, that's the reason why I asked that question because I was intrigued to see what that experience was because you and your sister went through it together, you know.
mhm,
And some people we go through it together. They have different perspectives. It's like you riding in the car, both of y'all get in a car accident, but y'all been impacted differently. You know,
mhm,
some people split ways. Some people come together. So it's interesting to hear that you could
Yeah.
have to maintain that relationship and keep that foundation throughout it all.
Yeah. For us, I mean, there's definitely days where I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, we are different. But yeah, definitely still have that connection. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Well,
Mm-hmm.
thank you for sharing. I wanted to just get a more sense of the history and
Mm-hmm.
what it looked like going through it.
Yeah.
Segue a little bit.
Yeah.
The segue, because you kind of gave us a little bit on your professional. So I'm gonna touch on some specific questions I
Yeah.
have surrounded around this from your bio and what have you. So um,
Yeah.
my first question is, how do you balance your current jobs within child welfare, at Child Welfare Information Gateway with the three side hustles, and how do they collectively contribute to your overall mission and advocacy?
Yeah. So how do I balance? I work late. Yeah. But I don't do everything every single day, right? Like, so of course I'm doing my 9 to 5 every single day, but I'm not doing all the other stuff every single day. But like, so for a long time though, I did have an issue with that. And my husband was like, you need to figure your life out because like it's too much and you're burnt out and things like that. So self-care really, really put into that on how I can balance. But I would say that I have told myself although I like love doing all these things, I don't have to do them all day, every day, all at the same time. Right. So when I'm advocating, I feel like I'm advocating through all of my platforms, but some of them intertwine. Like I've been in situations where I've been doing like some on-site calligraphy stuff. And then I started talking to someone and we got into a whole conversation about how they wanted to become a foster parent. And, we got down that whole like, well, here's some of the things you can do and things like that. It's just like natural conversation that comes around from that. Or I've been in situations where I've been doing maybe some of my DEI consulting and I've got to connect with some super cool people at conferences and things like that. So my current position is fairly new because I did a lot of local and state work for my 13 years. So doing the national level work beyond like some conferences and things like that is fairly new, and I'm super excited to be in this space. But it all comes back to like the advocate, the avocation and advocacy. They're like, here comes Kenisha again, coming into the room to talk about how we can be, centered in our DEI and anti-racism work. And she's always going to have to say something about something. Yep, I am always going to have to say something. If I call you out on your language, I'm going to say something about something when I come into the room, because if we don't have those uncomfortable conversations, how are we going to break down the systemic barriers that are put in place by the system? So, I'm always going to be talking about it. I'm always going to be bringing DEI into a conversation somewhere. I'm always going to be bringing anti-racism work into the conversation somewhere. Like, that's just how it is. But I've gotten a lot of cool opportunities to be able to do that. I've done some big changes that have happened in Michigan because of that. Like I've got to be a part of. One of the more recent ones is the state is rolling out. They're in the slow rollout year 2 of this race data collection project, which is really cool, where not only are workers required to have conversations about race, ethnicity, and culture with their families, but making sure that their families are self-identifying and that we're not just assuming that because I look Black that I'm Black. Well, I am Black, but I'm also Black and white. So like, like, and a lot of data like goes into that, right? Or we're assuming that because a person looks a certain way that they have a particular religion. Like we can't do that. We have to have meaningful conversations with our families, and we have to make sure that we're providing them with those cultural competence services that like go with what they believe in and what their culture is and things like that. So there's a lot of cool work being done in Michigan. And like a lot of that started a couple of years ago, which has been pretty cool. I've also been in a space where I've got to do some policy and legislation stuff, which is really awesome. So being able to bring in the vision of writing policy with this anti-racism lens, and bringing folks to the table that need to be there, because, you know, for the longest time when policy's written, like folks with lived experience weren't even at the table, or was just all like executive leadership, which is not very diverse, like things like that. When it came into that. So a lot of those changes got to be made, right? And now I get to do that at a bigger level, which is super awesome. Like doing some collaboration with the Children's Bureau and making sure that we're incorporating lived experience, making sure that we're incorporating folks that look like you and me, and not just folks that aren't very diverse, right? So a lot of those changes are happening very slowly, very slowly, very slowly. But, you know, there's me and you and a whole big group of other folks out here. Like you had Mercedes on here recently, and a couple of other folks that I've worked closely with that you've had on your podcast recently, that we're all out there doing the same thing when it comes to advocacy. So I don't know if that really answered your question. I hope it did. Maybe it did.
Yes,
I don't know. Okay.
and it's a fairly, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna choose my words wisely, because I don't want nobody to come for me.
Mm-hmm. I'll say it what you want me to say.
The more modern conversation around advocacy when it comes to BIPOC issues
Mm-hmm.
around child welfare or social welfare or in the system change space is fairly new.
Yeah, it
Oh.
is.
Like the conversation about things, coming alongside like civil rights and things like that has been happening. Like that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a space where there is reaction, to the voices that are out there speaking. That is fairly new.
Mm-hmm.
In the state of Michigan, it's fairly new.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised to see that we have multiple directors that are of African American.
Yeah.
This, you
Who are
know,
amazing,
that are
right?
they're great. Like I have
So great.
conversations with these people
Mm-hmm.
all the time, and I'm truly appreciative. Um, and I will say that we have made strides,
Mm-hmm.
but in this, it's a marathon.
Oh yeah, we're always gonna be doing something.
um,
Yeah.
and one other thing that I would like to see in this space, yes, it's great that we have all these different advocates like yourself and me, but also there's a piece that I still think that is missing at the table, and that's the individuals who have yet, and I'm gonna say this, um, who have yet to get to the place that where we at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I said it before, they may have some colorful language, may not be put together. They may have a felony or two.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but their story, their experience, their expertise is still worthy of being heard, and it's needed because what they went through, what led to their decision making, is something that we, at least in the state of Michigan, I like to say that we like to deny it a lot of times. We like to be solution oriented without actually hearing what we are making a solution from.
Mm-hmm.
Like we got to talk about, okay, what led to this. We don't got to marinate in it, but we got to talk about it, own it, to get to that next side. But that's my little ramble.
No, you're right. Like, not only should we have lived experience at the table, but we should have lived experience that, you know, when they're brought to the table, they're going to see other folks like us around there who are going to give them a little bit more help too,
Mhm.
right? And lift them up a little bit more. Mm-hmm.
And that's important. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
And then if the question for my individuals out there that run nonprofits, have advisory boards, all this other stuff, if the question that you have is like, well, these people aren't prepared. They don't know how to strategically speak. We don't want to set them up for failure. We don't want to exploit. Then it's okay to have someone who's a little bit more trained with lived experience to help and mentor them.
Yeah, and coach them. Yeah.
You know, you have to give space for those individuals who aren't there yet. You know, that's how we learn, that's how we grow, because eventually all these put together people, we ain't gonna be here no.
And I don't think I'm even put together all the time sometimes. Right?
Well,
I've definitely been in spaces where I've said things that have gotten myself in trouble, but only because, and what constitutes trouble? Like, and I think I
gets
said
to
that as
say
who gets to say that? What is that? And I think that's why I put down like the title that we're calling like getting ourselves into good trouble, because I call it good trouble when I'm in spaces and I'm saying things that make people uncomfortable. That they might not necessarily agree with, but it's the truth. Like, and I'm pretty blunt about it. Like, I'm gonna just say it like it is. I know that I have to choose my words wisely in some places, depending on the crowd that I'm around, but I'm also going to challenge people to have those conversations. One of the things I really love to do when I host workshops, one of my favorite ones to do is with one of my closest co-facilitators. And it's me, and then it's a white man. And we have these conversations about Dr. Kendi's anti-racism deck. Have you ever seen this before? I'll have to send you the link if you haven't seen it. But so we have these conversations with folks in these workshops, and we're talking and we're having, these hard conversations, and I'm challenging people. Like, I'll hear from, I feel like when we're sharing our story, a lot of time it's always the BIPOC folks in the group that are sharing their story and being vulnerable. So I'll say, can I get some white people to speak up, please? Like, and challenge it. And you see faces like, did she really just say, like, can I get some white people to speak up? And I'm like, can I? Yeah, I want to hear what you have to say and contribute to the conversation. Because if you're here and you're wanting to say that you want to do the work, like, I want to see that. Like, how are you doing the work? How are you bringing this back to your agency or whatever, and making sure that you're infiltrating inclusiveness into the work that you're doing back at the agency? And all of this work starts with us, right? Like, even I've been on this journey because I didn't learn about so many things until I was in my 20s, because I was only taught about, MLK and Rosa Parks at my white school. Like, so I wasn't exposed to any of that. So it's just been a really good and hard journey. But yeah, I like to get into trouble a little bit with some of the things that I say sometimes, but I promise it's a good trouble because we have to challenge people.
I realize if I ain't pushing the envelope, I ain't doing my job.
Right?
I realize not everybody gonna like me, not everybody gonna be my friend, and that is okay. The role of individuals pushing for change and acting change, unfortunately, isn't a peaceful one. Unfortunately, and many of you guys out there know, I'm a person of faith, and one of the things I've learned in studying is that, when you're doing the right things, you're gonna face some persecution. So and that's been my journey. Even with this podcast, I remember it's out and pushing the envelope, and with the conversations and the dialogue having here, and not being accepted by the state, not being accepted by MDHS, and having to sit down and have those conversations and be like, look, I'm going to ask these hard questions because it's needed. I I'm not here to bash. I'm not here to, do that, or, but I'm here to help us heal, help us grow, and help us get to a better future, because
Yeah.
where we're going, we're just going to destroy each other, because this side ain't going to stop. Y'all ain't going to stop. Y'all just going to keep putting policies and laws and all this other stuff. And they just going to be like, excuse my language, F y'all. and that's not conclusive because the people who get caught in the crossfire are the children.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not fair because they didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for
Mm-hmm.
it. So, yeah. My next question for you is, considering your lived experience um, with the child welfare system and as a person of color, how
Mm-hmm.
has your journey shaped the specific focus on biracial spaces, and what impact do you aim to achieve by advocating for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So not only do we not talk about particular groups of folks or areas enough that we should, but we never, ever make space for biracial, multiracial folks. I feel like sometimes we sort of get forgotten about a little bit. But it's really interesting. I've got some really awesome opportunities over the last couple of years, especially doing some of the state work, and working along some nonprofits here in Michigan, and even some national level work that I've got to really constitute and create space for biracial, multiracial people. And I'm going to say biracial in the sense of that you're a person of color and you are white. And why am I saying that? Because it's sort of important to think about some of this work that we do, as we always have the people of color side, but we also have the struggle inside of us sometimes. And I'll say that the struggle inside of me sometimes that I'm part oppressor and part oppressee.
Mm.
It's yeah.
That's deep.
So like, but of course, like I've come a long way to overcome that. But some folks, when they're first starting on their racial identity journey, and they are biracial, half person of color, half white, they're like, but half my family did this, and half my family was oppressed by this. Like it's really interesting to get through. But when it came to the work, especially in child welfare and the work of advocacy, I know that I've worked alongside some nonprofits to create space to talk about our racial identity, because there wasn't a lot of space to talk about racial identity. So being able to create space for other biracial, multiracial folks to come together and have conversations about this, and then finding resources and writing about it and doing research and things like that, because we have the right to identify how we want to identify, and it can change over time. I heard a podcast that I follow. It's called is it called April and June? I forget what it's called. She's so amazing though. Her name is April Dinwiddle, and she's a huge advocate. You've probably met April or done work alongside April before.
Probably.
Yeah, I bet you have. She's amazing. And she said that she identifies as a Black biracial person. And that just like hit with me so deep, because I was like, well, that's how I identify. Like, yes, firstly, I identify as Black. That's how you see me. And that's what I'm going to advocate for. But I'm also biracial too. So some of the other things that I've done is with a group of folks locally here, we've created a space called the Multicultural Experience, where we have like a Facebook group and an Instagram, a Facebook page and an Instagram page, where we go live once or twice a month, and we just have real conversations about what that looks like to support biracial, multiracial kids as parents, especially if you're a foster parent and you're taking in a child that is biracial, multiracial, like what you can do for them, what kind of conversations you can have for them, things like that. So I've helped create a couple of those spaces. And I'd say right now that most of the spaces solely rely on identity development, because that's like a biggest part, I would say, of the confusion that happens within you when you are biracial, multiracial. So a lot of the work I focus right now on is identity development.
Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as I think, I'm just sitting here thinking like, well, let me see if I can find one space, and I'm just like, it really isn't, it really isn't. Because
Mm-hmm.
to offer that space, that opens a whole nother door and window to
Mm-hmm.
providing support towards individuals with um, multiple ethnic backgrounds in the aspect of supporting their culture and their heritage.
Yeah.
And then we already struggle
Mm-hmm.
trying to support, the individuals who are one racial ethnicity, because Lord, I can't speak. Y'all heard what I said.
Yes. Ethnicity, we got it.
In the child
Yeah.
welfare system, but trying to support someone in the many other youth, many
Mm-hmm.
other individuals that have two,
Or
yeah.
more. Mm-hmm.
Look,
Mm-hmm. How do you keep them connected to all those different cultural aspects? We're trying to strive to keep us
we're gonna
connected to
pose
one
that
cultural
question.
aspect. How do we keep them connected to all those different cultural aspects? Right? That's hard. It's hard to think about. I know that like I've had conversations with folks before where, especially when it comes to identity, saying that, yeah, you can identify however you want at any point in time as a biracial, multiracial folk. But I mean, I'm never gonna identify as a white person, but I could go into a white space and see what's up or whatever and have some conversation. But something that I've really been doing a lot of research on lately. Actually, there's no research out there. I will say this, and it's a fairly new topic that is really interesting that folks look at me with a crooked eye sometimes when I say this, is how I've overcome and dealt with being half white. And I mean, I'm half, I'm like 50-50, like struggling with, do I have white fragility?
Mm.
But I'm I'm a Black girl. So that's been really interesting. Like, I think that there's these tendencies that are conditioned into me because I grew up in a white home. But how am I overcoming that? Which I definitely have and been working on for years and years and years. But it's just really interesting to think about. And you're like, wait, how do you have white fragility?
Uh,
See the crooked eye.
yeah.
It's interesting.
Oh, you hitting the hard ones today.
I know.
Hard ones. Look, I'm trying to come out here swinging with the questions, and it's like I got one back for you. I got one back. No, but that's real. That's real.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so. And I'm interested, because you posed a couple questions there and what the audience perspective. I know I have a couple people that listen that are part of nonprofits and
Mm-hmm.
hey, so I'm interested in what your thoughts may be. So reach out to me. Reach out to me. Getting to my last couple questions. How do you see the intersectionality of your experience in both psychology and child welfare contributing to a more comprehensive understanding of trauma and resiliency within the system?
Mm-hmm. That's really good. So I have my master's in psych, but I'm not a counselor. I never wanted to be a counselor. But it's been really interesting doing both my bachelor's and my master's, just learning about how the human mind works and learning about things like mental health and alcoholism and substance abuse and things like that, and how a lot of times that sort of intersects, with the parents in the child welfare system, and being able to understand them more, I would say.
Mhm.
It's definitely given me the skills to be able to understand why folks are doing the way we do and be able to empathize and give them a little bit more space to really put some faith in them that they can, overcome these obstacles to whatever it may be reunified, um, um, or whatever that looks like, building a relationship with their family again. Maybe it looks like um, building relationship for kinship care, like whatever that looks like. But it's been interesting though that I still have a hard time with thinking about those factors with my own story because I know a lot of those factors have contributed, substance abuse, alcoholism, mental health, and I'm like, I don't care, you still didn't do what you were supposed to do to take care of us. So I know, like I've forgiven, right? But it's just interesting when you think of it about your own story compared to like all the families that you've helped. I feel like I have more faith in all the families that I've helped than my own family.
Wow, that's deep.
I know.
Um, okay, okay. Wow. I'm gonna navigate us to my last couple questions here. I know I said that last time. These are the last
Mhm.
questions here.
You're good.
So, and these may be a bit more personal.
Yeah, that's okay.
Feel free to be like, Michael, you tripping. You mentioned you were married, you got married at 19.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just gonna go into my data book, the scientists, and the people out there tells us our brain doesn't stop developing until
I know.
so we out
Mm-hmm.
here, at 19, 18, 21, all this other stuff. We out here. Um,
Mm-hmm. Doing the most. Uh-huh.
especially if you've been through trauma, there's
Mm-hmm.
a level of um I don't want to mix up the years, how many years they say you get pushed back, but there's a level of being pushed
Oh,
back.
my ACE score is like a straight up 10. Yeah, I'm probably 11 or 12 or something, right? I'm like 10 doesn't go high enough. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure there was a level of growing
Mm-hmm.
within your marriage, within the relationships around, and a level of healing that
Yeah.
as you spoke now, there's still a level of healing.
Mm-hmm.
You also are a mother.
Mm-hmm.
You also are an individual who fits within the BIPOC community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you could touch on the experiences, the journey, the barriers, but also more importantly, the growth and the healing within assuming the role of a wife.
Mm-hmm.
You know, wow, let me be, because I know we in 2023, people don't always go by wife. Yeah.
I'm the wife. You're
Look,
good.
look,
In my particular relationship, yes, you are correct.
I'm just trying to
No
be
worries.
inclusive.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But in the many different roles that you have assumed in the aspect of a family, how has that been for you, and what has that looked like
Mm-hmm.
with the individuals who have became a part of this village?
Yeah, what's really interesting is so got married when I was 19. Um, but we've like sort of grown up together. Like my husband's a couple of years older, but first things first, I'm married to a white man. So that already brings a set of things that we've had to work through being in an interracial relationship and then having very multiracial children. my kids don't look like me. So lots of those questions come forth, like, are you the nanny? Are you the parent? Are you the mom? Blah, 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 blah. Yes. And assuming because I work in adoption that I've adopted them, which of course I'm like, you know what? Adoption's amazing. And I'd love to adopt one day, but no, I had these two. But it's been interesting on the parenting journey forefront that it's like, I didn't want to parent like how, of course, I was raised, and I was determined to be that cycle breaker, to break that generational trauma. It had to stop with me. Lots of therapy, lots of like, I just have to walk away sometimes. I have deal with mental health every single day. I have anxiety and depression and PTSD. So like if I don't take my medication one day, I know that I'm a little more irritable. Like, and my kids get on my nerves a little bit more that day. Right. So I actively have to like remove myself from the situation. Um, have I yelled? Yes. And there's been points where I've yelled a lot, and I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, so how can I fix that? Because I don't want like me to be yelling and then like, I don't know, something like change in me or something. I don't think it would, because like I said, I've actively been working on like breaking that generational um cycle, that I like don't want to hit my kids. I don't want to yell at them. I don't like I pretty much buy them anything they want, and they're spoiled, and that's my fault. I know, because I say that I try to make up for my crappy childhood by like giving everything to my kids. But I also want to instill in them that to just like be good people. Like, so my kids are little social justice warriors. They've gone to like marches. They've gone to like rallies. They go, and we're advocating for whatever it may be or whatever time, and they've done recruitment events with me, and done things with the foster children with me, and all kinds of stuff, because I want them exposed to that, to learn about that. So bringing that into our family has definitely helped. I'm forgetting part of the question that you asked me, maybe, so I might have to have you repeat part of that. But just really focusing on being that generational cycle breaker has really, and lots of therapy, and has really led us on this path that we are today, I would say.
No, you much touched on it in a nutshell.
Okay.
So I appreciate that. As I get ready to end, just want to say I appreciate you being on here, your vulnerability. I appreciate you watching me as I have grown.
Yes, you have doing amazing things.
Through thick and thin, and you may know very much, well, because I had on here a few days ago. People like my type of advocacy is not an advocacy that most people do, because it's a little bit personal with me. For some individuals, they put a separation line between some of their advocacy. So I've been advocating from 15, doing CWTI panels, grow panels, talking to incoming social workers, talking to foster parents, adoptive parents, and more so, I've always shared on my experience then, but also so the social workers, so the foster parents, so the individuals I was talking to would know. I shared on what was relative and what was happening to me now. So throughout most of my time in advocacy, people was like, one time I would go, yeah, I'm doing good. Life is good, in school. Come back the next time, I would go see somebody. Yeah, so I'm homeless now.
And you know what? Like, anything can happen at the drop of a moment, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so a lot of people, like yourself and some other people, have seen me grow, seen my life, and I told myself when I was young that, being in this space, I didn't want to be in this space, you know, um, for likes or for kicks or what have you. Wanted to be in this space to truly help and impact others. And there was a level of sacrifice with that.
Mm-hmm.
My life is out there. It's open to the books. There's probably about like 5 things like kind of my hand that ain't Googleable, you know? But
Same.
so my life
Same.
is out there and it's intentionally out there because I want people to see the real.
Mm-hmm.
There's levels of my life that I'm still building and trying to stabilize. As a consultant, and as a business owner, like many other out there, there's months where you're like, look, guy, this rent coming up, you know. But it's an ebb and flow, and I want people to understand that they're not alone out there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people sit in their, depression or situational depression, other things such like postpartum, having those thoughts of having to support your abuser now, like,
Yeah.
being a caregiver, for your abuser.
Mhm.
Like these are real life things that happen, and I'm glad that I'm able to share those things. And I say that to say, as we get ready to close and get ready to end, and I go to my outro spiel, um, is there any last advice or key tips or what have you would like to leave here today?
Yeah. Um, for the personal side of things, I would definitely say, like, if you're really struggling on, overcoming your journey or dealing with some of those hard emotions of going through this, um, like therapy has been my lifesaver. Like, I don't know where I'd be without my therapist. She's super amazing. And having spaces to be able to talk about it once you're comfortable. I think I've shared my story a lot now, but like once you're comfortable. And I know that there's repercussions that come with that sometimes. Like, I'm counting when my book comes out next year, there's gonna be some not very happy people. Like,
You
and
said what?
like, yeah. So I know that, right? But from a professional side, like I always say, just keep getting in good trouble. Keep pushing back against what you know is not right. Keep pushing back and advocating for our BIPOC community, advocating for um like our policies and procedures to be inclusive, like advocating to break down these systemic barriers that we have in place in the system that are preventing families from being together, especially our Black and Brown families. So pushing back, keep getting in trouble, keep learning and growing and like doing your own capacity building too, because I feel like I'm learning and growing every single day. Like, I learn something new every single day.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
You've already dropped so many gems, so many made a loaf of bread, a couple loaves, so I truly can't even express enough how much I appreciate you being on, your
Oh,
vulnerability,
thank you, Michael.
and you being in this space with me today. I truly hope for anyone out there that this, your story was able to connect with them, help them through something or give them some clarity, um, or even start, a journey for them, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I truly believe it. There's been times I've listened to a song, you're like, I need to start working on this. Michael, like it
Mm-hmm.
happens, it could be this podcast you listen, you be like, mm, I think it's time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so with that being said, you already mentioned you're getting ready to release a book coming up soon there. This space, any last
Mm-hmm.
comments or if you got a rap song, EP, poetry, whatever, you got, hot goat yoga that you do classes for, I don't know.
I mean, I do go to hot yoga, but I don't teach it.
You got a Zumba class, I don't know. Like this is how can people connect with what you're doing? How
Yeah.
people can support. Um, how people can, whatever it may be, how
Yeah.
support you, feel free to share.
Yeah, if you want to get on the pre-order list for my book, it's called And Then She Persisted. Um, you can go to my website, Kenisha Coon Consulting. I think if you just Google Kenisha Coon Consulting, it comes up. And then when you click on the page, it's right there. But I'm on Facebook, Kenisha Coon. I'm on Instagram, Kenisha Coon. And I am on LinkedIn, Kenisha Coon. So you can find me in all the spots with links to all the things. And you can send me a message. I'm down to connect, whatever that looks like for you.
Man, we've navigated through it today, y'all. Um, Season 3, episode 17. I wanna put disclaimer, trigger warning, whatever you wanna call it,
Mm-hmm.
There may have been some things that may have touched you, brought back some memories, whatever. I just ask whether you're navigating to work, sitting in the parking lot, in your living room, take some time as you end out this episode with me. Um, Center yourself, practice some mindfulness exercises, get back to baseline, because sometimes we can assume some things that we listen to and it comes into us, getting into
Mm-hmm.
our energy and it knocks our day off. That is not what I'm trying to do here with Resilient Voices and Beyond podcast. Not trying to mess up anybody's day. I just want to enrich people to be able to see different sides of society and different perspectives of the individual within it that don't usually get a chance at the mic. So, with that being said, it ain't gonna always be sunshine and rainbows listening to this podcast. But I promise you, as we get to the end of it, you could leave here better than when you started. So take some time to yourself. But also, if it has opened some doors, some bricks have kind of cracked from that wall that you have built, and you're like, I wanna, I wanna find my path to healing. I want to find my therapist. Feel free to reach out to me. I will gladly help you, find the resources within your community. You can email me, you can call me. I'm more than willing to help you do so. Um, I always like to hear feedback. So if an episode kind of started that journey for you and it's helped you, let me know. I would love to hear how you were able to receive this and how it helped you and how you were able to, start that journey for yourself. That helps me continue to do this. It's not always easy being in advocacy and doing this work. The secondary trauma is real, but it's the support that, individuals like myself get, the kind words, I like to call them like praise reports, when things change in individuals' lives for the positive, that I get to hear back at is awesome. But that being said, cold and flu season and COVID is coming. Now I'm gonna tell y'all that's out there with them 4 or 5 bottles of hand sanitizer in your car and at your desk. Most hand sanitizers say 99.9%, kills germs. There's still a percentage of some germs still on there. So take some time between sanitizing, go wash your hands, keep a mask with you. But in the nutshell of all that, please take care of yourself. We learned a lot from COVID. We learned that we need to be more aware of our mental health, of our physical health, and our family's health. So take some time, check on yourself, make sure you're good, and what have you. But also, I'm going to say this as we get ready to end. As you guys heard me talk about my relationship with my siblings, my relationship with family, there's still an ongoing push. I understand that family isn't always blood. Sometimes we have chosen families. So I just ask you guys, as you come to this episode and get to the end here with me, you take some time, reach out to somebody that for some reason y'all got mad at each other, whether it was over Hot Wheels or over that last piece of bread. But you still love that person. You still will ride or die for that person. I hope nobody is dying. That's why, please don't. But you still go hard for that person. reach out to that person. Tell them that you love them, tell them that you care for them, check on them, make sure they're doing well, make sure they're doing okay, but also do it in a healthy manner. If it's unhealthy, if it was a toxic relationship, I'm not telling you to go text that person. I'm not telling nobody to go text their ex or what have you. Right? Nobody got time for that. But just go reach out to those people, that you love and you care for, check in with them, and what have you. As I get ready to end this, I have a fundraiser out, GoFundMe. The GoFundMe goal is $2,000 to be able to sustain the podcast for 2 years. That will allow me to pay for the annual fees, have a contingency fund for anything that may come up between the podcast, have me be able to pay for support and assistance with the podcast, but also be able to continue to build and get equipment, and do more things between that. Please help me reach my goal. We are 3 seasons in. I truly could use the help. As I mentioned, a lot of this is funded through me. And it's a lot, you know. Monthly cost is $74.61. Imagine doing consulting, not having consistent consulting gigs, also working a 9 to 5, then not having a 9 to 5, and trying to make $74 appear out of nowhere. That is my life. And I truly believe in this platform. I truly believe this is what I'm called to do. But like many of you guys out there, what we're called to do doesn't always come easy. And sometimes you got to reach out and call out for help. So I'm calling out for help, reaching out to my family, my village out there. If y'all love what you guys are listening to, if y'all support this place, feel free, if you can, donate, become a monthly sponsor, help me reach my GoFundMe goal. That being said, this has been season 3, episode 17 of Resilient Voices and Beyond. I hope you guys have a good morning, good night, good afternoon, good whatever you're listening to this. Talk to you guys soon.